Ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1.
This is The Jungle, an up-close, unvarnished look inside leadership and business strategy. We wade into the real-world leader's face and explore what they do to create a path forward, because that's what business is. Wild, exciting.
It's The Jungle.
Derek, welcome back to The Jungle, buddy. Did you get some rest after all the news last night?
Ooh, it was a big night, lad. Big day, big week we had. Recorded some of these podcasts, did some amazing things with our students to have our program on TV, on the news. Carried
Wood TV 8. Wood TV 8.
Wood TV 8. Give them a shout out, right? Wood
Yep.
TV 8 covered what our students did this semester to try and help small businesses in the middle of the pandemic. It was amazing. I was up emailing people and getting texts, and it was just a great night.
Yeah, we have a campaign that our students really put together called #Safe Michigan. And we have profiled and spotlighted all of these great organizations doing good work and creating value during the crisis. So we had, 100 students make 50 videos and collaborating with companies to push those videos out on social, give them a little bit of love, give them a little bit of recognition. I get a phone call to be on the news at 11 o'clock. 11:10, we're on the news doing an interview, and off we go. And by 7 p.m., it's there, and the students are watching it, and everyone's having fun, and it was a great time.
Good times.
It's a great time.
Good times. All right, great times.
So let's talk about our great conversation that we had with Sandro DiNello, who is president, CEO, and director of Flagstar Bank and Flagstar Bancorp. That was a terrific conversation, really illuminating. And let's start with your takeaways there, Derek.
Yeah, first, great guy. It was just amazing to talk with him. He took time in the middle of all the stuff he's dealing with to meet with us and do a podcast. So that was just amazing. 3 points. I'm going to go with his 3 meetings. I was stunned at this, but it was I think feedback that everybody could use. So he does 3 meetings a day, 7:30 a.m. crisis management team. Meets with them for as long as they need, straighten everything out. Everything's going day to day. Everything's really fluid. Meeting 2 was key decision makers, and that was at noon. So in his case, it's all his lenders, because the lending issues are changing by the hour, by the day, by the minute. It's very confusing. So there's that meeting. An end of day balance sheet meeting. Every day he has those 3 meetings right now during this pandemic. They could be short, they could be long. They stay as long as they need to be, but he focuses on those 3 meetings, and what a great cadence from his home office. He's doing that too. So impressive. What did you have, Doug? What was your takeaway from?
We would call that in our kind of cultural lingo, we'd call that being dialed, would we not?
Dialed. That is dialed. Yeah,
very dialed.
He was dialed, and his home office was dialed too.
Absolutely.
I was jealous.
So three quick points. First one was the importance of continuity planning. So they had put in place some great plans back when Ebola and SARS came around of how they would deal with the pandemic. This is someone who's dialed, right? Has a plan, is ready to go, ready to execute. And they had a plan. They executed it. It seems like they did that flawlessly, allowed them to move really, really quickly. First guest
to do that. I gotta jump in there, Doug, because that was amazing. First guest to do that. And I'll say customers seem to not notice.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yep. That was unbelievable. Second point was a theme we've heard a lot about, which is communication. Can't communicate enough. The practice that I really like there is the 5-minute video meeting. On a Friday, he sends out a little bit of a video of himself, giving a little bit of feedback on where they are, where they're going. And it's a great way to kind of keep the morale up, keep the information flowing. Point number 3 is, which I loved, stress is not a word that I use. Doesn't use the word stress. The way he thinks about it is he's going to be calm. It's his job. And he's been blessed to be able to put his head down at night, fall asleep, get up to the next day. And I thought that the presence he had to have that kind of mindset was amazing.
Yeah, this is one worth listening to. Key sector right now. Definitely a podcast that I suggest everyone listen to. A lot of tips there from Sandro. So welcome to the podcast, everyone, and have a listen with our conversation with Sandro, because it is great. Enjoy.
Sandro, welcome to the podcast today. How's the weather where you're at? Are you getting a little bit of that Michigan snow?
It's snowing. It's pretty, but it's April. I don't know what's going on here.
We're inside with the pandemic and the snow. You've got the Bronco gear on though, which we love to see.
Yeah, That's my school.
Where are you talking to us from? Is this
This is Birmingham, Michigan, where our home is, and I'm in a room. This is really my home office. It's above our garage, and I kind of call it my bachelor pad, not because I'm a bachelor, but this is where I come when my wife watches The Bachelor. So I got my workout room behind me, and I got my couch here, and my TV is right up here, so I can get away. And it's turned out to be a great setup for me, given that I've been working here since March 13th. And I've really got things set up. I got 4 different screens I can be looking at, and I got a nice printer and everything I need here.
So you're taking any of those conference calls on the treadmill there? Let's be honest. You doing that sometimes?
No, you know what I do there is I'm usually on that at about 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And I got music on, and I'm catching up on the overnight news on CNBC Squawk Box, so I know what happened overnight. And then on the weekends, when I'm not watching Squawk Box, I'll catch up on Walking Dead or Ozark or something like that I don't otherwise have time to watch.
See, Doug, you got to get in the routine. I do the same thing. Treadmill, basement TV, CNBC, nightly news. You get it. 6 a.m. You get it over with, and you go about your day. Awesome. Yeah. It's a great setup. I'm jealous. Just so you know, that's way better than my setup.
We need to have a couple. We need to get the treadmill in the office there, Derek. That'd be a big ad for us. Well, do you have a beverage there, Sandro, on hand at all?
Cheers, guys. That's all I have right now. There'll be something different later today, but this is it for now.
Cheers.
Coffee.
So really appreciate you taking some time to share your wisdom, and I think you're gonna be a great guest to really speak from this whole situation from a banking perspective. First thing though we start off with is kind of step way back and let's look at this crisis. How are you seeing this from a banking perspective as similar, different from the prior crises we've had, the prior black swans, the 9/11, the Great Recession? How do you see those?
Completely different. Not any resemblance whatsoever. I've been in this business over 40 years. I've been through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of recessions, crisis. Never where the business world just came to a halt. The closest thing would have been 9/11. And, we had a business halt for 1, 2, maybe 3 days, but then you could see it was coming back. I mean, this is literally business coming to a halt. I mean, look at the level of people that have signed up for unemployment. In that first full week, kind of when the world here in the United States changed, we're 6 million people, right, that applied for unemployment. The most ever in a week, ever, was 700,000. So, man, how do you get your head around that? And now we know we're well over 20 million. So this is nothing like what we'd ever seen. And it's not a financial crisis. It is a health humanitarian crisis. And it's very different. The burden I feel as a CEO of 4,700 people is very different when it's about their health and not the company's health. Right now, the company's health comes behind all of that. And in every other crisis, you're fighting for the company's health. And not that that's not important, but I think it's clear that if you don't take care of your employees' health first, the company's health won't be there.
When did you start to see this come to be where the crisis was really starting to hit your clients and the alarm bells were going off for you guys?
Yeah, it struck me on about March the 10th, I would say. My wife and I were in Naples, Florida, on a little trip, and we came home on March the 8th. We were actually supposed to go back on that Friday the 13th because we have our annual board retreat down in Naples, and so we were going to have that next week. So we were going to come back home on Sunday and then get back to Naples Friday night. And by Wednesday, really Tuesday, I was thinking, man, I don't know about this, And by Wednesday, it became clear to me. And I had spent literally 24 hours reading everything I could read, listening to everything I could listen to about Europe, not what was going on here, but what was going on in Europe. And all of a sudden, I just said, man, I called a couple of our directors. I said, guys, I don't think going to Florida right now makes a lot of sense. And it moved so fast that by the that was the 9th, 10th. By the 13th, we had mobilized our entire company. And by the 13th, 3,300 of our 4,700 people were working remotely. I mean, that's how quickly my view of things changed. I mean, it was literally in the course of 2 to 3 days, went from planning a board retreat on Tuesday to Friday having 3,300 of our 4,700 people actually working remote.
Well, so can you talk a little about that? Because the role that banks are playing in this is critical, right? The clients you serve, the people you're serving are going through this, to use your phrase, health crisis. And now you've got them all working remotely. Can you take us through your decision-making in this? What's that been like? Some of the things you guys are trying to do to help your customers and your clients to get through this?
Yeah, I'm really, really proud of how seamlessly we made this transition. We're a very big mortgage lender. We're a very big mortgage servicer. And we haven't missed a beat in servicing our customers. We had one of our biggest months ever in mortgage origination in March because there was so much refinancing business going on. We had one of our biggest months ever in our warehouse business, which provides lines of credit to mortgage originators around the country. We continue to service over 1 million loans where many, many people were calling in to get forbearance. We put all of our customer engagement people that answer the phones, they were all answering their phones from home. So I don't think our customers actually noticed anything. Our branch customers now, of course, did, because we went remote with our organization on the 13th of March. Over that weekend, we decided we needed to change how we were running our branches. So that weekend, we went from having every branch open completely like normal, right? Lobbies, drive-throughs, and everything on that Saturday. So by Monday, we put in a hub and spoke plan where we had these hub branches that were open as normal, and then all the spoke branches were just drive-up. So we're trying to limit the number of our people that were going to be potentially exposed to a person who might have been positive for the virus. By Friday of that week, we had every lobby closed, and only by appointment could you get into a branch. Now, this is how cool how all that went is, and how great people have been, just our customers. Not one complaint has reached my desk from a customer who has been upset about something related to their service at a bank branch. And that's not just because our people are doing a great job, it's because people like you and me, recognize the unprecedented situation we're in, and they're really dealing with a lot of patience. We haven't had people worrying about withdrawing a bunch of cash. We had a few people, but if you go back to the financial crisis, man, we had lots of people that wanted $100,000 in cash now, and we haven't seen that here. So I think from a customer point of view, we've been able to adjust pretty quickly. If you want to talk about it, we could get into the Paycheck protection program. That's a whole nother story.
So the, Flagstar it sounds like you've led them in a amazing rapid pivot. What are the lessons you'd want to share on how you do that effectively? Because not everyone's able to do that. What's the lesson?
You got to have a plan, man. You just got to have a plan. And we had a business continuity plan that contemplated a potential pandemic. And we did that back, when we had SARS and Ebola. We went through those situations, and we knew we weren't prepared back then. We were so grateful that it didn't turn into a pandemic. But feeling the fear that we felt relative to our unreadiness back then, we said, that's not going to happen again. So we made a decision 3 years ago to basically ditch all of our desktop computers. We just gave them away to nonprofit organizations, schools, and things. And we moved everybody to laptops. We got everybody VPN licenses. We doubled the bandwidth that we would normally need in our organization, so that if we had to do what we did, we could do it, and we could do it pretty seamlessly. And everybody that needed to use phones, like customer engagement people, they had the right equipment where they could go remote, plug in at home, and answer the phone. So it's all about planning. And I'd hoped we'd never have to execute that plan, but we did. And because we'd gone through the tabletop exercises on this plan a number of times in the past, we didn't bumble it, we actually did it pretty smoothly.
And what has your role been in that during that pivot? What have you been like, and let's get really specific about what are the things you're saying, the behaviors that you're doing to facilitate that as a leader?
Yeah, it's triaging, because though from a customer standpoint, this has been pretty seamless, it's not seamless internally. There's a lot of different things that we have to do. So we have mobilized different groups of people that are responsible for different pieces of the organization. And we have standing meetings every day. It might be a 10-minute meeting, it might be a 45-minute meeting, but in the morning, our crisis management team gets together at 7:30. And we stay together as long as we have to make sure that we don't have any issues that we have to deal with. And then at noon, we have a meeting with all of our lending personnel, and we make sure that we know everything that we need to know about how we're dealing with all of our borrowing customers. Because for the most part, we're not making a lot of new loans outside of the mortgage business, commercial loans, business loans. Nobody's really borrowing money, but they all want to know, how they can survive. And so we got to make sure we know how we're dealing with all of those situations, whether it's the, little business down the street here, or whether it's a builder that's got a 200 lot development in Northern California, right? We got to know how we're dealing with all these situations. And then at the end of the day, we call it a balance sheet meeting, where we review the status of our balance sheet. Like, where are the risks? What do we need to get our arms around if we haven't thought about it? Because there's so many things that you haven't experienced before. An example would be forbearance. Freddie Mac says anybody that wants forbearance can get forbearance. If we close a loan today, a mortgage loan, and you as the borrower call tomorrow and say, I want forbearance, I have to grant you the forbearance. It's required under the CARES Act. I can no longer sell that loan to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac because it's in forbearance. So little things like that, that in our business we have to adjust to, that we can't anticipate, because it's just happening in real time. And so my role, number one, is to triage all that, right? To make sure that we're recognizing all of that, because most people, they've got their job they got to do, right? Every minute of every day they've got their job. I'm the one that's got to think 360. I have to have the vision to question everything that might be a problem and get the right people together to talk through, is that a real problem? Is it just me thinking about the worst that might happen, which is my job? And if it's a real problem, then, how do we deal with it? How do we mitigate that problem? And that, that's what leaders have to do. And I have to do it for the entire organization. My other executive team members do it for their part of the organization. And then we, as a executive team, we make sure that we're getting together 2-3 times a week to check each other out, right? And so that we each know what everybody else is running up against. And the other part I think that's really important, given that everybody's working from home and it's a different environment, is a lot more communication. So I record a video every Friday afternoon. I'll be doing that in a couple of hours. I'll record a video. It's 5 minutes. We distribute that over the weekend to the entire organization, and it's nothing particularly important, but it's just communicating. It's just, okay, this is week 5 of our new world. Here's what's going on right now. Here's what's really working well. Here's some of the community groups across the country that we've been helping over the last week. Just stuff like that. And then our president of mortgage, she does the same thing for her team. And the president of servicing does the same thing for his team, and so on and so forth. And so we're just, really stepping up communication with everybody.
I have one more question then, Derek. Let's pivot more to banking. One more question on kind of the leadership focus of this is, walk us into what are you doing to maintain your emotions, your energy, kind of you as a leader through this stress?
Yeah, so I don't use the word stress, first of all. That's not in my vocabulary. If I worry about stress in this role, not just during this pandemic, but anytime I have a freaking heart attack or stroke or something.
Okay.
So no, seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't think of it that way. You know, you just think of, this is my job, right? This is what I have to do. And I believe the mind is a powerful thing. And so I just tell myself all the time that I'm just doing my job. And right now it's a little different than it was yesterday. And the Lord blessed me with the ability to put my head on the pillow and get a good night's sleep and get back at it the next day and not dwell on what didn't go well. You know, concentrate on the positives and every day, you know, lead with a tremendous amount of intensity, knowing I'm going to give every minute, I'm going to give it the best I've got all day long. And right now these are long, tense days, man. I mean, I'm doing what I'm doing with you right now. I'm doing it literally 12 hours a day, a few minutes break here and there to go grab a cup of coffee or go to the restroom, go grab this salad I haven't had time to eat yet today. I mean, that's my world, you know, and I don't say that as a complaint. I love the challenge, and, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and it's just what I do. It's my job.
Can you talk about some of the you said new world, the stuff that's happening in banking right now with payment protection plans and forbearance and all the stuff that is changing maybe by the hour for some of you? How are you dealing with that? And can you give insight to some of your customers or clients?
Well, the CARES Act is throwing a lot of things at us. Now, it's not all out there yet, but there's a lot of things that are going to continue to come out. There's $2.3 trillion that the government has appropriated in the CARES Act. And separate from that was a $345 billion Paycheck Protection Program that was given to the SBA. So I'll talk about that first, and then I'll jump over to the other facilities that are going to come out from the CARES Act. The Paycheck Protection Program was easily the most difficult thing that this company or I personally was involved with having to stand up in my career. I mean, think about this. You know it's coming. You know that the CARES Act provided for it. You know it's coming, and you're waiting for guidelines. You're waiting for the SBA to tell you how to actually do the program. And meanwhile, the government is telling everybody every night on their coronavirus task force updates, there's going to be $349 billion available to businesses on Friday. You can start applying on Friday, first come, first served. And every small business with less than 500 employees is chomping at the bit to put this application in, because they're basically getting a grant equal to 2.5 times their monthly payroll. It's no little thing. It's a big deal. And we've got to get it up literally overnight. The guidelines were released on 7 p.m. on Thursday night. In the middle of the night, they released the application, and we were expected to be taking applications on Friday. And CNBC is reporting that you can walk in, make your application to your bank, and walk out at night with the money. None of it's true, but that's what people think. And so, I mean, we literally had our IT team working 24/7 to get this thing up and running. We got that information on Thursday night, overnight. We chose to wait to start taking applications until the electronic application was actually up and a portal was established, which was about noon on Saturday, and then applications just started, pouring in. And the money ran out, unfortunately, yesterday at 10 a.m., and we did not get everybody through that applied. And it's extremely disappointing to me that we were not able to get everybody through. But no bank in the country, I'm comfortable saying, got everyone through. I happen to be chairman of the Mid-Sized Bank Coalition, which is a group of 102 mid-sized banks across the country. And I'm in contact with all of those companies, and everybody was struggling to get all this done because the rules were changing. Every day we were getting new guidance. I mean, it was the most difficult thing I've ever had to experience. And, now I'm going to spend the weekend along with a few of my colleagues here calling everybody that we didn't get through and saying, I'm sorry, we tried, we couldn't get you through. But we're going to have you ready because we hope Congress is going to come through with another $200-300 billion, and we'll get you through, the next time around. So that's been an extremely significant challenge. And Then you have your business customers, right, that all of a sudden don't have revenue. That's a different situation because we have control of that situation. And so what we're doing, and I have to give regulators credit. Oftentimes when you have these crises, the regulators are difficult and they're making it more difficult to get through the hard times. They've been very cooperative. They've provided us with a lot of empowerment to do the right thing. And I mean, they want to know what we're doing and we're staying close to them. They're giving us guidance. But we're going to all of our commercial customers and we're saying, look, if you're impacted negatively by COVID-19, we can put a payment deferral program in place. We can defer your payments for 3 months. We can add them to the end of the loan, things like that. And so we're a little by little working through our entire commercial and business book, no matter what size the loan is, trying to figure out what that particular customer needs, because the last thing we want to do is put anybody out of business. We want to help them stay in business. And whether they were a business that could get the Paycheck Protection Program, and even if they got that, that's only 2.5 months. So I don't know what you guys think, but I don't think we're back to normal here, 2.5 months. So I think, the ability for us to help them with their cash flow by modifying their payment terms and deferring payments maybe for as long as 6 months, perhaps even longer, depending on how long this thing goes. That's a big part of what we're doing now to try to help our customer base weather this very difficult situation.
So at the banks, are you guys scenario planning? Do you have scenarios on 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years? And are you doing that with all of your clients and as you're building these programs out, or just?
Yeah, it's difficult to look farther out than 3 or 6 months, frankly, right now. And if this were to go longer than 3 to 6 months, then by then we'll be talking about the CARES Act, version 4, 5, and 6. Because the economy can't withstand that. So let's hope that that's not the case. Let's hope that what the administration announced yesterday relative to states, having these phases and getting back in business, that helps mitigate it. I mean, I don't think that everybody's back to normal from a business point of view, until we have not only an effective treatment but probably a vaccine, and we know that could be 18 months from now. So. I mean, it's one day at a time right at the moment, really. But I do think that government and private industry are working well together. Sometimes it's a little choppy, but I think overall, I think there's been good cooperation. And, look, we don't have any playbook to read on this. So we're figuring out kind of, in a very dynamic fashion on the fly.
So you talked about major structural changes to your workforce and how they're performing things based on a continuity plan. Do you think some of those, and then we'll go back to Doug, do you think some of those are going to stay in place for the long term? Do you think you'll adopt some of those, flexible work schedules for some of your employees, work from home? What are you thinking in terms of how you service your customers and clients, and how some of these changes could become permanent for you or some of your clients even?
We've actually been pretty progressive on this historically. So as an example, all of our mortgage underwriters, and we have, maybe 250 mortgage underwriters, for the most part, they work from their home. Even if they live here in Birmingham, they can work from their home. So we have them scattered around the country for the most part, working from home. But what this has done is allowed us to test who else can work from home. And, we're finding that our call center people can work from home, and we have not seen deterioration in their service levels. So I do think that this is we're going to learn a lot more about how we can work remotely here. And that's a great thing, because when you think about, people that have kids at home in different situations where they could be a lot more flexible by being home. And look, if you're processing a loan, I don't care if you're plugged in from 5 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, or 9 to 5, or 3 in the afternoon to 11 at night. So this is allowing us to determine who really can be just as productive working remotely. And so, I think there's going to be some huge changes in our company relative to how many people we think have to be sitting in a building that has a Flagstar sign on it.
I've got one last question here, and then we'll go to some rapid fire questions. How do you see this impacting at all the banking industry? Do you see innovations or disruptions looking out onto that sector?
Well, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the banking industry because, you can only go so long without revenues, and then you can only cut expenses so much. So the one thing good that one of the good things that came out of the last crisis was that the capital levels that banks needed to maintain and the liquidity levels that banks needed to maintain were increased significantly. So if you think about it, you haven't heard anything about banks being in trouble relative to potentially failing, right? Nobody's worried about that. It hasn't come out in any news story. There's no lines at banks people trying to get their money out. It's very different than it was in 2008, where there were lots of concerns. Banks were being closed by the FDIC every day. But the longer this goes, the more pressure there's going to be on banks. So I think it could potentially hasten consolidation. There's been a fairly active M&A world in banking, but I think that could be accelerated if this goes on for any length of time, where we do start to see capital deterioration. I mean, you're seeing banks are all reporting first quarter earnings now. We'll be reporting ours in about 10 days. So far, the bank earnings have been largely positive, with the exception of the fact that banks are putting away more reserves for credit losses because we all anticipate that there's going to be credit losses. So I think, that's where it is for the banking industry right now. I mean, there are other industries that are more stressed, but it's pretty much in the non-bank financial services world. And there are a lot of non-banks that are in the financial services world, but they don't carry the level of capital and liquidity that the banking industry does. So right now, I think we're good, but yeah, I think there could be some stress going forward.
Let's conclude here with some rapid fire questions. So we have some questions modeled off Inside the Actor Studio. Have you happened to see that show, Sandro?
I have not seen it. No.
Okay. So it's an old school. It's on one of those creative funky arts channels. But these are short questions, one word kind of answers. Kind of a fun way